My apologies. Assalamu alaikum and very good evening to all of you. I'm extremely delighted to welcome Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Abdul Hafeez Shaikh Saab, and a guest of honor, Chairperson FPR, Ms. Nosheen Amjad Saiba. Thank you for sparing time out of your extremely busy schedule for gracing the occasion. This post-budget conference, as you all know, is a signature event of the Institute. The Institute organized karta raha hai has been doing it for decades now. And in this very important session, we discuss, in this very important conference or session, we discuss the salient features and amendments of the budget, both from a macro perspective and from the perspective of specific amendments as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know, as Asad Ali Shah Saab has just concluded his session, and he rightly said that even before this COVID crisis, which has hit us hard, we were already in crisis. We were in IMF program, battling with the challenge of twin deficits and struggling to keep the GDP growth momentum. The next year is certainly going to be more challenging, as unfortunately COVID is still going to be there, and the uncertainty around is that the length and depth of the crisis is still unknown. We all know that budgeting and planning in this critical and uncertain environment with the objective to balance the health crisis and reviving the sluggish economy is not easy at all. It does require continuous review, continuous reassessment, and probably some more supportive measures as well, as many of the speakers highlighted. In the budget 2021, the government, as we have seen, government has emphasized on expansionary fiscal policy with the aim to achieve economic recovery, no new taxes, subsidies for certain sectors, and some relief measures as well. We had very good discussion throughout this conference on both direct taxes, indirect taxes, and at the end about from the economic and business perspective as well. Our expert speakers and panelists highlighted both the positive aspects of it, and we saw some very healthy positive suggestions as well for the consideration and of course for the reassessment and reconsideration of the ministry and FPR as well. Amongst the highlights of the budget, which also remain the spotlight of today's discussion, was the revenue growth target of 27%, with GDP growth estimated to be around 2.1, inflation hovering around between 6 to 7, no new taxes. I mean, this is still a question that whether this is really a realistic, achievable target, or this needs to be reviewed, or is it an optimistic target which needs to be reviewed. We would love to hear from the Chairperson FPR and of course Dr. Hafeez Saab about this as well. We have also seen a cut in the PSDB this year. Of course, the fiscal deficit containing is also an important aspect. Will we be able to achieve the required and the hope, what we hope, the revival of the economy with some growth? With this cut, we will also learn from Dr. Saab and Chairperson FPR as well. So without deliberating too much on it, I again warmly welcome Dr. Saab and Chairperson FPR, and over to you, Ashfaq Saab.
Thank you very much, Khalil Saab. As everybody is saying that this was a gigantic task to author this budget, and we have the author of this budget with us. I know it's a difficult phase for him and his team to conceive this budget. Let me warm welcome, greetings to Dr. Abdul Hafeez Shaikh Saab, advisor to Prime Minister on Finance and Revenue, to speak about the budget. Dr. Saab, over to you.
Shukriya, Ashfaqullah Sahab. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm delighted to be here. ICAP is obviously a very important institution in the country, और आप लोग हमेशा ये annual program करते हैं, and we are really proud of the way you conduct and manage this event. देखें, I'll just quickly share with you कि ये जो साल गुजरा है, इसमें पहले 9 महीने में before coronavirus hit us, how the economy was doing and where we stood. आपको पता है जब ये government आई, we were in a state of an economic crisis. And for that reason, we had to go to the IMF. Nobody goes to the IMF without a serious economic situation. And we were forced to do that. उसके बाद कई मुश्किल फैसले किए गए, which included trying to mobilize resources, trying to pay off the huge amounts of debt. And you will know that in the 2 years of PTI, 5,000 billion rupees of debt payments have had to be made. अब ये जो साल गुजर रहा है इसमें पहला चैलेंज तो ये था कि how to mobilize our tax revenues, which has been a historical failing in our situation. The tax to GDP ratio never, really going beyond 11% or so. So I think the efforts of the FBR were pretty good. And even though we did not meet our very ambitious targets, we were going at the rate of about 17% growth. If we had continued on that path, we could have hit about 4.5 trillion, 4,500 billion or so. Second, we were very aggressive in cutting expenditures. And it was a rare time in Pakistani economic history that just before the corona struck us, we had a primary balance that was in fact positive, which means that our expenditures were less than our income if you did not include interest in it. And that number was about 194 billion plus. The current account deficit, which was at a historically high level of $20 billion, had been brought down to 3 billion. And exports, which were stagnant for the last 5 years, had begun to move up. During this time, the non-tax revenues was also increased. The target was 1.1, but in fact, we were able to get higher than 1.5 trillion, and that was 134% growth over last year. And all this was done without borrowing anything from the central bank, but without giving any supplementary grants and so on. The FDI was increased by 137%, and the world as a whole appreciated Pakistan's performance, whether it was in the IMF board, whether it was by Moody's, which upgraded Pakistan's ratings, or even Bloomberg, which called the Pakistani stock market the best performing in the world in December 2019. All that, of course, was affected by the coronavirus. People can and experts can differ on the impact of the coronavirus, but we think that the GDP could be affected by up to 3 trillion rupees. At the same time, as I said, if we were heading in a revenue collection of about 4.5, and now we are reaching about 3.9, that means there's a 600 billion plus loss on the revenue side. Exports are down, remittances are down, employment is down, large-scale manufacturing is down, retail trade is down, and clearly, it's a big calamity. So the first reaction of the government was to try and do something about it, and in that case, we came out with the coronavirus stimulus package, in which about 16 million Pakistanis are being given cash transfers, and small and medium enterprises, their principal has been deferred by up to a year. Their payroll expenses are being financed through subsidized schemes. Electricity bills are being paid by the government for smaller commercial enterprises. 280 billion rupees worth of wheat has been procured to get money into the hands of the agriculture sector so they can go on and generate demand in the economy. Utility stores have been given extraordinary amounts to try and reach the middle class by giving them subsidized food products and all that. So in this environment, it's quite challenging to come up with a new budget. Anyway, the philosophy of the new budget was threefold. First, that we should have no new taxes, because we did not want that at this time, when the economy is in a severe, historic contraction, that we should further burden the existing taxpayers with new taxes. The second was to try and give as much relief as possible, first to our citizens and second to our businesses, because we have to strike a good balance between protecting the health and safety of our people, but at the same time ensuring that the economy does not suffer in such a way that the lives of individuals become even more hard pressed than they are anyway. So, what were some of the key points in the new budget? As I said, this budget has a revenue target of 4.9 trillion. Some people think it is ambitious, and I can sort of agree with that because in this time it does appear ambitious. At the same time, it's very hard to be certain or be confident about making forecasts because we just don't know how long the coronavirus will be around, whether its severity will increase. So we have to be a little humble about our capacity for giving correct forecasts. But if the coronavirus begins to recede and in the next, after a quarter or so, the economy really picks up, then this target would, I think, over the year as a whole, be achievable. Second is that we thought we will reduce the cost of doing business for our businesses. So about 1,600 tariff lines, their tariffs and duties were brought down to zero. This means it could cover up to 20,000 raw material items. And that would be about 20% of the entire imports that we have struck the duties to zero. And that's going to be, I think, having a salutary effect on cost of doing business because these are all raw materials. Similarly, we have brought down the duties on about 200 other items, and those are intermediate inputs. And we have tried also to bring down the regulatory duty on another 166 tariff lines. We've lowered the withholding tax on imports of raw material, intermediate goods to 1 to 2% from 5.5%, and especially on imports of capital machinery, we have brought it down to 1% from 5.5%. The FED, the federal excise duty on cement, has been reduced to 1.75% from 2%, and the general sales tax has been lowered for retail outlets which are connected to the FBR, the POS point of sale, from 14 to 12%. For hospitality sector, we have minimum taxes reduced. We have given exemptions of duties and taxes on diagnostic kits for cancer and corona, and CNIC threshold has been increased from 50,000 to 100,000. Minimum tax reduced for hotels, marriage halls, etc. Removal of withholding tax on school fees, marriage halls, and so on. And withholding agent threshold enhanced to 100 million from 50 million, and so on. On the expenditure side, we have tried to be, again, very aggressive. We have, in fact, reduced the nominal budget of the civil government, and we have not increased the military expenditure in real terms. We have tried also to protect two of our flagship programs. The first is the public sector development program, where the number is retained at 650 billion because it's more than last year's actual utilization. And similarly for EHSAS program, which is a very successful and I think much appreciated program, the number has been increased to 207 billion rupees. Because what we want to do really is, on the one hand, ensure that business activity picks up and the adverse effects of the lockdown are minimized. and on the other hand, to ensure that the people who are the most vulnerable, the poorest, the ones with the least capacity for generating income on their own, to be provided cash transfers and liquidity so that they can, survive this period of hardship and play their part in the economy subsequently. So this is where we are. Our hope is that we can achieve the growth, GDP growth target of, 2%. And like I said, a lot depends on how events unfold, not just domestically, but internationally. Because if the corona affected countries get going soon enough, then the demand for our exports will pick up. And that also will mean that our own economic activity will be positively affected. So this is where we are. I'm happy to respond to any questions if there's a system for doing that. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And I want to again thank ICAP and Mr. Tola and Mr. Khalilullah Sheikh Saab, and I see Asad Ali Shah Saab also is there. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Saab. You are always very generous to ICAP, and this is second program in 2 months, and we'll keep disturbing you every month. Don't worry. So now we have Madam Nausheen Amjad, Chairperson FDR, and our guest of honor. May I request Madam to kindly say a few words about today's budget conference and budget as a whole. Madam Nausheen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Sir, we all thank you.
So much, Ishfaq Tola Sab, and I'm thankful to ICAP and it's always a pleasure being in this conference because it's such a mature and old organization, and it has been holding this post-budget and pre-budget conferences every year, and it is one of the hallmark of ICAP. And I apologize for missing the pre-budget conference, but I made sure that I have to attend the post-budget conference. And already Hafeez Shaikh Saab has said a great deal about the circumstances in which this budget was made, because it's a very unusual situation which the whole world is facing right now. And we are also facing. It was never ever thought or envisaged that we will be coming across this kind of a situation in our life. So in these unusual circumstances, this budget was prepared. So it has totally a different dimension to what we have been used to seeing. And the first and the foremost thing is that no new taxes have been levied. This is the first time in the history of Pakistan that a budget has been presented which is without any tax measures. And I was listening to Asad Ali Shah because there was an overlap of the last session and this session. And I know that the business conditions are not good at all. And there are a lot of expectations that people are having. But at the same time, I would I just want to reiterate that, the fiscal space is very, very limited. We all wanted, while making this budget, to give some comfort or some breathing space to as many businesses as possible. But you all are very well aware that unfortunately, things went nosedive. And I'll just share briefly the figures with you that indicate that though the last year's budget was also very ambitious, keeping in mind the growth rate that the economy was experiencing at that time, but we did make a good effort of having the overall 17%. And The income tax was growing at 18% and sales tax 25%, FED 21%, and custom minus 4%. And this was because of the compression policy that government itself introduced in the last budget. But the imports unfortunately got compressed much more than our expectations. That's why for the first time again in the history of Pakistan, the import showed a negative trend. And I would also take the opportunity of sharing it with you that in the domestic taxes, we were growing at 27%. And this is unprecedented growth that the domestic taxes showed. And import revenues increased only by 7%. So in the last 1 decade that I checked the figures, this kind of a domestic growth has never been experienced. This trend shows a very structural change in our budget making, that we have always been relying on increasing the duties, and on that we had a maximum chunk coming from the imports, but it's not a healthy approach, and the input cost increases. So that endeavor was done, and in the last year, a lot of emphasis was placed on documentation also, like POS, and then asking for the ID card. So, we were going very steady that, and then COVID came, and now we are expecting a growth of 3 to 4% till June. So it has fallen from 17 to 2%. And when we were making this budget, our main objective was to mobilize the revenue as much as possible, recognizing the COVID conditions. In these circumstances, it's very tough, very, very tough to balance between the relief and the revenues. And at the same time, we are in the IMF program, and they have their own fiscal discipline. And we have sought some flexibility from them, saying that our working condition, the business conditions are not good, and we are not in good shape as far as the economy is concerned. Then at the same time, broadening of tax base is also kept in mind to reduce the burden on the existing taxpayers. Then a great emphasis has been placed on simplification of systems and procedures. And then automation and taxpayers facilitation has also been one of our main considerations. Then documentation, as I already mentioned, and then very focused and pointed concessions, massive benefits for elimination and reduction in taxes and rates have been given. Things have been done to reduce the cost of business as well. And one of the hallmark of the budget is that we have taken some very cogent initiatives regarding reducing the litigation. And we have revamped our alternate dispute resolution system that we had, and given quite a big concession of, I'll not repeat what Advisor Saab has already done, that the rates and taxes reductions that he has mentioned because of the paucity of time. So I'll just focus on things that he has not mentioned. So in this budget, on litigation, we have introduced, enabled the negotiated assessments. This concept was earlier there and then was withdrawn for a number of years, but now it has been reintroduced again, so that our tax collection also gets better, and the taxpayer also doesn't have to go through the hassle of going into the appeals if the tax is paid. And if you have any suggestions regarding this, these are always welcome. And as Ishfaq has already mentioned, that there's an anomaly committee which has been notified today. So we are expecting that you will give us good suggestions and to make it even better. Then revival of dispute resolution, and this also earlier it was that the whatever decision was taken in the ADRC was not binding on us. So now this has been done away with, and whatever happens there is binding on us. And the taxpayer still will have the right to go in appeal as well. So we are expecting that people will come in this, and the revenue which is stuck in courts and in appeals are going to be resolved. And with this, we can, in future also, we are expecting that we will get the taxes, then e-assessment is being introduced, in which audit system is totally revamped. The selection for the audit as well as the procedure for doing it audit is also being revamped. Then automated refunds, as you know that whenever something like COVID comes, it does bring some blessings also. I won't say that that's a blessing, but we it charges our mind to think on things which we maybe in the normal circumstances we do not focus much on that. So as there was a restriction on gatherings, so we thought that this can be a good idea to just have automated system. Only cell dates was automated. Then duty drawback has been automated totally, and we dispersed about 20 billion without any human interaction, and 48 billion other than faster refunds were given. And in the income tax, yes, I do admit, because of the this manual system, entire manual system and income tax refunds that we have been a little slow in just giving the refunds. But up till now, I have been told that 5 billion worth refunds have been issued from rupee 1 million to rupees 5 million to all the taxpayers whose refunds are valid by the computer, and they have also given the IBAN. So I would also request that please pass it on to the taxpayers that they have to update their IBAN system. And very soon this is going to become a regular system. So there's no going to office and getting a check, or no hassle of waiting for the advice and all these things. So then in track and trace also, we are very cognizant of the fact that documentation is not to that level, and the ones who are in the tax net are having the burden of those who are not in the tax net. So point of sale was introduced last year, and I would like to share it with you that 6,616 the point of sales were installed. But this time we have set a target for us to take it to 15,000. And as the businesses have opened, so we are now going to come start doing this exercise again to bring it at some level where other people can also, why only 6,000 should come. And our ultimate target is to take it to 25,000 cases, and then slowly and gradually take it to other taxpayers also. So now I would like to I'll just say thank you once again. And had the COVID not been there, I would have been in Karachi, my city, where I've been for 25 years, and I miss that. I would have come personally. So it's so good to see you all, and thank you from my side. If there are any questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. This is not a question answer session, hence there will be no question. So, आपको बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया. I am extremely grateful to Hafeez Shaikh Saab for his presence. Second time in 2 months, and to you always blessed us with your presence. और आपने हमेशा ICAP को एक बड़ी तवज्जो दी है, और इंशाल्लाह ये cordial relationship जो है वो हमेशा रहेगी. हामिद साहब भी बैठे हुए हैं, उन्होंने बिल्कुल 11th hour पे ICAP को accommodate किया और हमारी presentation की, और बड़े तामुल से हमें सुना, और कुछ चीजें हमारी incorporate भी की हैं. Hamid Saab, a lot more to come for you and for me now. So we both have to face now, and inshallah we'll be resolving the technical side now, and we'll try to manage it. Inshallah, hope to see you again, madam. Thank you very much, and my dear viewers and panel members, extremely grateful to all of you for your presence, and I think we have achieved our objective, as said by the honorable advisor, financial advisor to Prime Minister on Revenue and Finance, and Madam Nausheen. जो भी हमारे recommendations हैं इस conference के हवाले से, ओवैस साहब आप उसको compile कर लीजिए and please send it over to us. Inshallah उसको we'll look into it. We have got a seasoned, माशाल्लाह हामिद साहब, उन्होंने देखनी है, उनकी टीम ने देखनी है, और इंशाल्लाह हमने भी सब मिलके इसको resolve करने की कोशिश करेंगे. With these words, extremely grateful again to all of you. Allah Hafeez, Pakistan Zinda.
Thank you so much, and we are waiting for your comments.
Ma'am, कल मैं आ रहा हूँ, सुबह फिक्र ना करें.
Allah Hafeez. Thank you very much.
जी, thank you.
अपना थोड़ा भाई क्यों घबरा गए थे? क्वेश्चन आंसर होने देते.